What does it take to make fire obey a single stroke? In 1826, that question belonged to John Walker, an English pharmacist working in Stockton-on-Tees. Fire was essential, yet summoning it remained slow, awkward, and dangerous. Walker did not begin with a grand industrial blueprint. He began with chemicals, curiosity, and the practical frustration of a man searching for a more reliable way to create a flame. For centuries, ordinary people had depended on flint and steel, tinder, candles, and lamps. Each method demanded preparation. A spark might fail, tinder might be damp, a flame could vanish just when it was needed most. In a domestic world increasingly shaped by work, trade, and expanding towns, instant fire was more than a convenience. It was a necessity waiting for a usable design. Walker's profession placed him close to the problem. As a pharmacist, he handled reactive substances and understood that chemistry could be both useful and treacherous. He experimented with compounds intended to ignite when exposed to friction, meaning resistance created when two surfaces scrape against each other. The principle sounded simple. Making it dependable was not. The decisive moment came during an experiment in Walker's shop. A chemical mixture clung to the end of a small wooden splint. When Walker tried to remove the residue by scraping it, the coated end suddenly caught fire. The accident was not a complete invention by itself, but it revealed a powerful possibility. A prepared stick could carry its own ignition mixture and burst into flame through a deliberate stroke. That discovery transformed a laboratory mishap into an engineering challenge. The coating had to ignite readily, yet remain stable during storage. It had to cling to wood, but not crumble away. The splint needed to be thin enough to catch quickly and strong enough to survive handling. A match that worked once was interesting. A match that worked repeatedly could change daily life. Walker had to balance chemical energy against human safety. A mixture too reluctant to ignite would defeat the purpose. One too eager could flare unexpectedly, injure the user, or ignite during transport. The boundary between convenience and catastrophe was measured in chemistry, texture, pressure, and timing. In that narrow boundary, the pharmacist found the real difficulty of invention. The early friction match was therefore not the neat little object remembered from later decades. Its chemical composition could be troublesome, and its ignition could be violent. Formulations associated with Walker's matches used substances such as potassium chlorate and antimony sulfide, alongside materials that helped the compound adhere to the splint. The chemistry produced heat rapidly, but control remained an unfinished problem. Phosphorus chemistry hovered over the entire field. White phosphorus could ignite with remarkably little provocation, making it attractive to matchmakers, but its volatility created severe dangers for workers and users. Walker's original friction match did not solve every hazard associated with phosphorus, and the later history of matches would be shaped by the search for safer chemical combinations. Fire had become portable, but safety had not yet caught up. In Stockton-on-Tees, Walker moved from accidental insight toward practical manufacture. He coated wooden splints, allowed them to dry, and tested whether the compound would respond to friction. Each trial embodied a small act of judgment. Was the layer thick enough? Had it bonded properly? Would a firm stroke produce flame or merely tear the coating away? The workshop became a place where chemistry met patience. The required motion gave the invention its identity. A user did not need to build a spark from separate tools. The coated splint could be drawn across a rough surface, converting mechanical friction into heat until the ignition mixture reacted. That sequence compressed an old fire-making ritual into one quick gesture. Walker had not eliminated nature's danger. He had packaged a controlled encounter with it. The product reached customers in 1827 after Walker began selling what became known as friction lights, often associated with the name Congreves. They were supplied in small containers with a separate rough striking surface. Their arrival marked a remarkable shift in expectation. Fire no longer had to be coaxed from stone, metal, and tinder each time. It could be carried in a pocket or kept ready at home. Yet novelty did not guarantee acceptance. Early matches could emit an unpleasant smell, burn unpredictably, or ignite with an alarming flash. Their chemical coatings were not perfectly uniform, and the user had to handle them carefully. A device intended to simplify life introduced a new kind of risk, the possibility that fire might appear too easily in the wrong place or before the user was prepared. Walker himself did not patent the invention. That decision, whether shaped by personal choice, limited means, or confidence that others would develop the idea, left the commercial field open. Other makers refined the form, altered the chemistry, and pursued profits from the expanding demand. The original accident belonged to Walker, but the broader match industry would be built through many hands. That pattern reveals something essential about invention. A breakthrough is rarely a finished object descending fully formed from one brilliant mind. Walker identified a workable principle. Manufacturers then confronted scale, consistency, packaging, distribution, and public trust. The match had to survive not only the moment of ignition, but also the journey from a chemist's bench to countless households. As production expanded, chemical safety became impossible to ignore. Match workers handled substances capable of burning skin, damaging bones, or poisoning the body. Factories could expose laborers to fumes and dust for hours at a time. The same chemistry that promised liberation from old fire-making methods could impose a hidden human cost on those who manufactured it. Public fear grew alongside convenience. A box of matches seemed small, but it contained concentrated energy in a form ordinary people could activate instantly. Children could reach it. Clothing could catch. A dropped match could become a household emergency. Society had to learn new habits, careful storage, cautious striking, and respect for an object that looked harmless precisely because its power had been miniaturized. The match also changed the rhythm of domestic life. Lighting a lamp after sunset became faster. Cooking fires could be started without a prolonged struggle. Travelers, shopkeepers, laborers, and families gained a practical tool that required little equipment and almost no instruction. The invention did not merely produce flame. It reduced the time, effort, and uncertainty between intention and action. That reduction carried a cultural force far beyond the pharmacist's shop. When a tool makes an essential task easier, people reorganize their routines around the new ease. Fire became more available, more portable, and more private. A household no longer needed the same elaborate preparation to preserve or revive a flame. The friction match entered ordinary life as a quiet revolution, but Walker's creation was also a warning. The first successful design exposed the limits of improvisation. A reactive mixture could be ingenious and still be dangerous. A useful object could create injuries that its inventor never intended. Improvement therefore demanded more than brighter flames or cheaper manufacture. It demanded better materials, better working conditions, safer formulations, and a deeper understanding of chemical behavior. Later matchmakers pursued those improvements through persistent experimentation. Safer striking surfaces and less hazardous compounds gradually changed the experience of using matches. Red phosphorus, developed for safer ignition systems, helped separate the most dangerous chemistry from the match head and move it onto the striking surface. The familiar modern arrangement emerged through this long process of refinement, not from Walker's first prototype alone. The story's historical importance lies precisely in that unfinished beginning. Walker's match was not the final answer. It was a proof that a dangerous accident could point toward a practical system. Once the concept existed, other inventors could test its weaknesses, manufacturers could standardize its production, and society could demand greater protection. One small flame opened an entire field of chemical design. There is a human drama hidden inside the object's simplicity. Walker saw a possibility where another experimenter might have seen only spoiled material on a splint. He recognized that the sudden fire contained information. Then he faced the harder task, translating that instant into a repeatable experience. Invention required imagination at the beginning, but judgment, endurance, and humility carried it forward. The friction match also demonstrates how close progress can stand to danger. The device succeeded because it brought reactive chemistry near the threshold of ignition. That same closeness made safety a permanent engineering problem. Every improvement had to answer the same question in a new form. How could fire be made immediate without making it uncontrollable? By the later 19th century, matches had become a familiar part of everyday technology, while the industry's abuses and hazards helped provoke demands for reform. Manufacturing methods, workplace protections, and chemical choices could no longer be treated as private concerns. The match connected household convenience to industrial responsibility, proving that an invention's impact includes not only what it enables, but also the conditions under which it is made. John Walker's name did not become synonymous with every match that followed, and his original product was eventually surpassed. Yet the significance of his work endured. In 1826, an accidental ignition in Stockton-on-Tees revealed a new relationship between friction, chemistry, and human intention. The first friction match turned a fleeting laboratory surprise into a portable technology, and that is why the tiny match deserves more than a passing glance. It represents the audacity to learn from failure, the discipline to test an unstable idea, and the responsibility to confront consequences after success. John Walker did not simply invent a faster way to light a flame. He helped begin a journey in which chemistry entered the household, convenience reshaped daily life, and human ingenuity was forced to become safer as it became more powerful.